Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Reed. I traveled in Up with People 1976 Cast A, and I am here today with
Kerri and Appleton, and I traveled in C99.
C99.
Yep.
Welcome, Kerri. You and I met, we were just talking, I think because of reunions and me
Yeah.
being on either the local coast committee or the Board of Governors, I don't remember, but I think that's how we first met, right?
Yeah. I mean, I traveled as a student in C99, but then I worked for Up with People in 2000, went through the process of them closing their doors, and then came back as tour manager in 2005, or maybe I think 2005. And so I was down in Tucson for reunions a lot because I worked for the organization for 3 years as tour manager and then on contract for many different projects. So I think one time I met you, got to know you. I feel like we worked a door together.
We did. We
Because
probably like watched for badges walking in or
yes,
something.
yes. I met so many alumni that way, actually, and really got to know some of the older alumni because I was still pretty
Did you
young.
just call me older?
Well, now I'm older. So I'm there with you. We're an older alumni now. Um, or more mature.
There
I
you
don't know what the
go.
word
That's
is.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
But because Stephanie bringed me in to be a volunteer one year.
Okay. When she was doing the reunions, kind of heading them
I
up.
think she was either
Yeah.
she was in the transition or she was doing them.
Okay.
And they were fun. I mean, to be a volunteer was really fun. And like I said, I got to know you and many others that I don't know if I would have ever got those moments because you're checking badges, but then you're just standing, waiting around. You start chit-chatting and you're
Yeah.
there for a couple of hours
Yeah. That is,
together.
that is so true for me as a person from a tiny little town that lived in Ohio until I came here and started working at reunions. I met so many people doing that. So that's pretty cool. So where are you now, Kerri Ann? If we were doing where in the world?
Well, I'm currently back in Denver, Colorado, and I've only
Okay.
been here, I think, just over 3 months now. Been back. I was living in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, for 6.5 years. So just kind of,
Six and a
I've
half.
come back, but I say that with some hesitancy because I'm not back, as in like I'm permanent here, but I'm here for some time.
Your like physical body is there in Denver, but
I'm kind of all over the world still.
yeah, figuring out what's next and where is next. And
Yep.
awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you are doing and maybe what took you to Brazil.
Well, that we could be here a while for that, but I'll
Okay,
try
yeah,
to do a short
we got to
version.
cut these because I only do the
So
pre-Zoom.
what took me to Brazil is I had a long career in nonprofits. This is one of the reasons why I worked for Up with People. And actually, if we go back a little bit, I graduated with a degree in political science, going to go off to law school, become a lawyer. But I traveled and Up with People after I graduated and just really thought I can probably make a bigger impact if I work in nonprofits. So I decided not to go to law school after my year of Up with People and went down the path of working for several large nonprofits in Colorado, and then eventually went back to working for Up with People and then started my own consulting company. And then I got an opportunity to go to Brazil working with a nonprofit to lead a group there of young adults to run like an English immersion program, I would call it, for high school students in Brazil.
Okay.
And Brazil was not on my bucket list at all. I don't know why. It just never had been called to me. But when I got there, oh my God, I could just like this feeling in my body, like I felt like I'd come home.
Wow.
And I didn't know why. There was so much emotion racing through me, and just it was an unbelievable experience. So I kind of kept eye out for more opportunities, especially with this organization called US Brazil Connect, to go back down. And then they offered me many more. And I just knew the first time I visited Rio de Janeiro, I mean, within 45 minutes, I said, I have to live here. And I don't know why. So that's what really like prompted the big move. I mean, I sold my condo, I sold my car, I sold my stuff. I dragged my black Labrador down to Brazil. I thought I would just be there 1 year for a 1 year exploration, turned into 6.5. And through that process, I left the nonprofit world behind because really what I think why Brazil called me so much is there was an energy down there for me that just needed me to do some deeper work on myself. And through that deeper work, I've now become, I call myself an emotional well-being specialist. So I help people to understand their mind and really their emotional body and start to make changes so they're leading a more healthy life. They're emotionally more mature, or emotionally more intelligent, and they have more control over their life through their mind and their body.
That's fascinating. And I know you and I have talked several times about this related to my own journey, and connected you with some other friends. As a matter of fact, I talked to someone yesterday who's doing a 2-year self delving deeper thing. And she is
Beautiful.
the child of people that from MRA. So she's going back to pre-up with people and everything. So
Wow.
we frequently, because of, the joints that got old and had to be replaced, think of the physical well-being. We don't always delve as deep as we should into the spiritual and the emotional piece.
Yeah. And really what I've really come to realize from my own experience and now from coaching clients is the emotional part is a big part of our mental and physical health that we just don't know enough about. I think it's kind of new, this kind of emotional. We've always had emotions. We're humans with bodies that feel these emotions, but we haven't ever really learned what are they and what do we do with them. I think most of us have learned of like, oh, it's better not to have the ones that are uncomfortable. Let's stuff them away. But then they just get stored within us until something happens and it gets triggered and we're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, I don't like how I just showed up. Now I feel bad about myself.
And women one way and men another way,
Yes.
and certain ethnic groups one way and certain, other groups another way. So did being in Brazil, do you feel like they as a country, as a culture, were already more open to that than maybe we as Americans?
That's a great question. And I would say that they're more open in expressing their emotions. They're very good with expressing, releasing, being done. It's kind of like witnessing a dog when it's been activated. So like when I walked my dog and a loud truck would go by, she would just start barking. And then the minute the truck was gone, she would shake, and then wag her tail and be smiling again. They were like that. But I don't know if they always knew. And so oftentimes I could see like anger being projected out onto somebody, like another driver, whatever. And then they would be done with it and they wouldn't carry it on and be stuck in the anger all day. They would just be over it. But they were still kind of vomiting it out on other people. So I don't know if they had that yet, but it was beautiful to feel the freedom to cry, to be angry, to feel fear, and not be judged and not feel like you have to stuff it. So I think that's a big reason why the energy really called me there.
Yeah.
To do this deeper work for myself.
That's neat.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to Up With People. You used the word tour director. I got to tell you, is that what we called cast directors?
No, I was tour manager. So I was in the office. I mean, I had an office position. I was out on the road. Usually someone sold the city. So they found the sponsor or sponsors. Right. And then I would go in and work with the sponsors to get the team ready to figure out what the nonprofit was going to be that we were serving, especially because under the new model.
Right.
And I don't know if that's still the case, by the way. But at least during my time there, the sponsor would choose the nonprofit that we would work with during our time there. And so I would help him find the host family for the team, work on getting media for the team, like getting things set up for the team, getting a printer, that kind of stuff. Okay. And then supporting the PR teams.
When they arrived. All right. So one of the questions that I didn't ask Paul and Steve, because they have way too much of this, was I kind of have asked people about costumes. So in 1999, as a student, and then there's the break, and then, all that. Tell me what you wore as a student for a costume, and then maybe how that changed coming into the the early 2000s when you came back.
Yeah. So I wore basically, it felt like normal street clothes. I had these brown kind of shorts and a red top, but everyone had something different. because my show is road, so it's supposed to be really colorful, but look like we're kind of, and I don't know exactly, but I have a feeling that we wanted to be able to be relatable to the audience.
A little bit less like you're this spectacular thing on stage and more like you're one of us kind of.
Yeah. And I'm making an assumption here, but I just felt like, let's look like everyone else, but we had to still be very bright. And we were all a variety of colors, for
And did you
sure.
bring your own, or did Up With People still provide them?
They provided them. Now they gave me these terrible, big, clanky shoes, and I'm already 6 foot tall, so I had like another like inch or two on these clanky shoes they gave me, and they weren't like the typical like black heeled like dance shoes. They were just these clunky like kind of like, I don't know, hip hoppy. I don't even know what kind of style shoe, but they were terrible. I think by the end of the year, the last show, I literally went to the dumpster and threw them out. I was like, I never want to wear these shoes again.
That's all you needed was like another inch or two. You and I talked about that, about like what size shoe we wear.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we were in like Statesville, North Carolina, and we were in a convention center. And I was on the top riser. This is rehearsal. And they're like, Kerri, you have to come down because you're higher than the lights.
You're
welcome. Like, come down the risers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, too funny. So did you have then also, like when I traveled, we had a show costume and a assembly costume. Did you have something different that you wore if you did? No, it was all the same.
No, all the same. Yep.
Okay.
And then I would say, I'm trying to remember what I think basically the shows that came out really because in 2005 we had a huge transition between CEOs.
Right.
And then because we went from World Smart back to kind of Up With People,
right?
The more familiar Up With People that alumni know. And the costumes I think were relatively the same, but they went with the trend of that time of even the 5-6 year difference. So still it felt like more like what you see on the street, but big vibrant colors.
Okay. Okay. And at that point in 2005 and 6, was Up With People still providing them, or were kids bringing their own?
God, that's a great question, because I wasn't really involved with that. I thought it was a mix. Actually, I remember Lori Beth Bry like going to like Gap and Old Navy and buying stuff.
Okay.
And then, but I think the students could bring suggestions in when they did the kind of the wardrobing, and then Lori Beth and the team could say, yes, that works great. I actually don't know if she was on the team to select, but I know I remember she was back there, helping with that process.
All right. So again, because of kind of the time jump here, and then you working that for them for a number of years, is there something a song or anything that you remember from your show in 99 that really spoke to you, and, or then something as you moved forward and started with the new cast, or like, what are the songs that maybe you run through your head? If you're like me, they run through my head.
The two that stand out for me the most, of course, is Roads. I think every single time, because I usually played one of the first flag bearers during Roads that come out, or the second.
Oh, see, we didn't used to do that when we did it in my show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I just remember it was such a powerful moment for me, a powerful song. And I still remember our last show. I was a flag bearer again towards the front, and I had tears coming down my face because it's the last show and hearing Roads. But I also want to say from our show Roads, the 1-to-1 song and the sign language, like there was such a great song to teach kids in school. And that was so impactful because one, they're just the words and the meaning of the words, and also for them to learn sign language. And they're not learning the whole sign language, alphabet language,
right? No,
but to learn some of that, because there's a body memory to it.
Yeah. I only ever saw that, learned it, heard it by going to reunions a lot, by working at all the reunions, and I stand up there and I pretend I know what I'm doing, and I don't really. I just try to mirror whatever someone was doing on stage. But that is absolutely a song that pops in my head as even in today's world, like right now, there's another one, like the kids, the lyrics were, I'm just one person, what can I do? And that one, 1-to-1 will change the world. They wrote some good songs, huh?
They did. I actually have, especially since I worked for Up With People, I got to hear a lot more of the music than if you just traveled for 1 year.
Right.
I had, and not just access, but it was just like I could hear them playing sometimes music in the office, or they were trying something new. And I was like, what is that song? And then, of course, going to so many reunions. And
Yeah.
of course, I purchased a bunch of back then CDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I have a playlist on my iTunes or whatever it's called now, iMusic,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just Up With People. It's like a lot of Up With People music, like,
Oh,
that
yeah.
I had, and I
Yeah.
love listening to it. And sometimes, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was the Up With People music. Was it with a Dutch orchestra?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Peter Van's Fun Something. I can't
Something,
think of his name.
something.
Somebody
I
will know who.
sometimes play that music when I have dinners with I have friends over for dinner because
Oh,
it's
nice.
lovely, beautiful background music.
Ah,
And it just, for me, I think too, because you start to connect with the energy and the spirit and the essence of Up With People. And it just, that when you're in that energy, it just creates something magical. Even if the people around the dinner table have no
no
idea,
idea.
it
That's
just
very
had impact.
cool, Carrie
Yeah.
Ann. I like that. So one of the things that I had told Paul the other day was like, you can't pick like Roads or Moonrider as your favorite song. You know, you need to pick something else. And I had given him a super hard time about a song in our show, I Don't Want to Rule the World, because I just thought that it was weird the way we walked around on stage and everything. I remember saying that to Lynn Morris back, as an 18-year-old, and almost got like kicked out of Up With People, I think. but is there's every show also had like kind of a weird song or something that you never do at reunions, nobody ever repeats it. Is there a song that was in one of your shows that you just find amusing? Or
I can see the song. I can see Kevin playing the part, and I cannot remember the name of the song. It was annoying. I'd have to go through the Rhodes list to remember it, but yeah,
it's
it was
funny.
just obnoxious and annoying.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we all
You'll
didn't
think
like
of it
it.
afterwards. You can go
I
online.
probably will. I'll
So,
send you the copy of it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So tell me about where you traveled, because you had said, okay, Brazil wasn't necessarily on your bucket list, right? Oh, I got to go to
Yeah.
Brazil. So where did you go that maybe really struck your heart, that you might want to go back to? A country, a city? Is there?
There's a lot of them. We traveled mostly throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. And I actually, right out of the gate, I went to the first city in Utah. And then after Utah, Price, Utah, I flew to Calgary to do my advanced work for 1 month. And that was an incredible experience. I would love to actually go back to Calgary. There's just such it's probably changed so much since I traveled. That was in 1999. But it was such a beautiful city. And Canadians are just lovely people.
They use the word lovely way more than we do as Americans. Yeah, he was a lovely man. He was, you don't say that, but it's so funny that you use
Yeah,
that word.
I
Yeah.
use it a lot. And I think it's also because I have so many friends from England and they say lovely all the time, at least my friends do.
Yeah.
Um, so I also had an extraordinary time in Denmark. I was really surprised because I generally don't like places that are super flat. Um, I love mountains. This is why I chose Rio, because it's mountains right up against the ocean. But I was really surprised with how much I really love Denmark. I think if I had to choose a place, I would love to be able to explore Belgium more. We did, I don't remember, 1 or 2 cities, but it was right at the end. And you weren't in it at that point. It was like, oh my God, we have come to it. And our last city was in Belgium. We've come to the end, and you're focused on the
Not the city, but
goodbyes, the transition, and where's life going next for me.
right.
But I didn't really feel like I got to connect with the culture there. And from at least my experience with people from Belgium, they're just, again, lovely people that I'd like to go and visit more.
Get to know a little
Yeah.
bit better.
But I will say this, I'm very grateful that I got to visit so many states. I have two states left to visit. Oklahoma is one of them, which is so close to Colorado.
That's
and then
true. You can just go there.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Alaska, which is quite far away. But I'm so grateful that I got to experience so many states, not only during my student year, but as a tour manager. And really not just like pop in and just, even though I was only there a couple days, I didn't just pop in and see, for example, the Grand Ole Opry, though it was pretty extraordinary. I got to like stay with a host family and start to understand the culture and community a little bit more there, understand what's happening in that versus what was happening in Colorado. Or to be quite frank, I'm from New Hampshire originally. I'm
Right.
from a small town of 3,000 people in New Hampshire, a ski town. So to be able to experience my own country and have a deeper understanding of it, I feel just really grateful for.
You know, it's interesting you say that because we were bicentennial. So except for Mexico, we were in the United States. And I can't even tell you how long we were in Texas, but it was kind of the same way. So for me, it's the Northeast city, you know, places that I haven't been yet because we did the whole West. And you said Price, Utah. Is Price outside of Salt Lake City?
I
Like,
mean, I can't remember how far because we drove to Salt Lake City to drop me off at the airport. So it's not far.
I think that my host family in that area was in Price, Utah, and it was my first experience with an LDS family. And like milking the goats, making everything from scratch, and you know, a bunch of kids. And
Wow.
it was a very different. So when you said Price, I'm like, I think I'll have to look at my journal and see if that's that's where it was. So, okay, question about food. Anything that you learned to eat on the road that you loved, or anything that you just thought, oh, I'm never going to have that again?
Well, what I can remember from food was like Subway sandwiches, pizza, and pasta. But I will tell you a couple things
Like
like in
lions and
Denmark.
tigers and
Now,
bears.
my food is so different now because I'm plant-based. But back then, like when we were in Denmark, they had these little stands with these foot-long hot dogs. It was like a baguette that they would put a hole in and then you put all your condiments in and then you shove the hot dog in. And for some reason, I love those. I would be like, where's the next one? Where's the next one?
I've never had that.
Every city we went into. And then our tour didn't go to France, but we spent a day in Strasbourg, France, because we were just over the border in Germany. And like, oh my God, the croissants. Like, I mean, last time I was in Paris and I'm plant-based, I was like, I'm going to have a croissant, even though I know it's made with butter and probably egg. I'm totally fine with it because
I'm here and I'm doing it.
I'm here and the French make the best croissants in the world. I also like my 4 host families in Italy. They made the best homemade pasta, like
Nice.
no other. So I just think about those experiences and those foods kind of come to mind the most. But we ate a lot of pizza, pasta, and Subway sandwiches.
Yeah. And so interesting because you've addressed now a couple of times host families. As Up With People looks into the future, one of the things that they've talked to everybody about is that the host family experience played such an important role. And we may not remember their names. You know, I think about the people that had babies that were probably 22 when I stayed with them, you know, things like that. And if they're living, but the host family experience seems to be super important. And yet in this post-COVID world, like, we don't know, you know, when Up With People returns, how will that look? You know, will the host family experience, will people be ready to open their homes because they're just ready to have that happen?
Yep.
Or will it be a really long time until that's even an opportunity because it does mean so much.
It does. Like, you know, I never was one of those people that wanted to kind of backpack through Europe or just go to hostels. And though I do like hostels actually, because it's a great way to meet a lot of people and see things. And now we have Airbnb and whatnot that makes travel a lot easier. But I will say, staying with a family, again, just even as a tour manager, the policy for Up With People, especially because of just the costs of hotels, we had to stay with the host family. Usually it was a local alumni, but sometimes it was the sponsor that put me up, you know, put me in their extra little house on their property. That happened one time in North Carolina for me. But then you get the experience to see how people live. And I think it helps break down these assumptions we have that everyone lives like us. Isn't this how you normally live? I mean, living in Brazil for 6.5 years, would just open my eyes to so many more things and having that experience. No, I didn't live with a host family, but I was there for 6.5 years. So I was just immersed in the culture so much that you just get a deeper understanding about the world and about yourself, and about how other people think. And you start to look at how you think, and like you
Yeah.
start to understand how I think is not always the right way, or the only way,
The
I should
only
say,
way. Yeah.
to think, the only way to be.
Yeah.
So that experience, that for me was the best by
Yeah.
far. Better than the show, better than the community service, was living with even the host families that was really tough. Like when I was living with a host family that they were a chain smoker and they had like 3 cats and one would attack you. Like I wouldn't have
You
that
didn't know what
experience
you were getting
otherwise.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet they were lovely people,
Right.
amazing people.
Right.
Yeah.
Mona, I think, is the one that said in one of the first interviews that when the places become the people, and like right when you said Price, Utah, and I was like, oh gosh, I couldn't have brought that name up, but when you said it, I suddenly have this recollection of a family. And I know that someone from our cast traveled from International Falls, Minnesota. So whenever I see the temperature in International Falls, Minnesota, and it makes me think of those people. And I think it's the part of us and those of us that were in Up With People that realize that going and doing and participating in the world does open, as compared to just reading about it in a book, right? You can read whatever you want, but if you don't experience it, it's
you need to, I mean, that's the thing about being a human, is about the experiences. Like we've given this gift, this human experience, to experience life, and that includes all the array of emotions.
right.
And you can't assume what a piece of food is going to taste like until you put it in your mouth. You can, of course, you can assume, but you don't know what it is until you put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
And then decide. And the more open you are to the experience, to learning, to having this experience, the more that you'll get from it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, my timer just told me that we only have a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that I've tried to ask the others that you would say to somebody listening to this who might be considering a gap year, might just say, Mom or Dad or Grandpa or Grandma, what was this Up With People thing, and how can I move forward in my world utilizing something? It's kind of a long, rambling question. Sorry.
Yeah. I think if you're considering a gap year, I think go in and look at yourself and ask, why do I feel like I need, what am I going to get out of this gap year? Why do I feel like I need it? Not to deter you, but to have an understanding of why it's important to you.
Yeah.
So when you make the choice to do it, you understand for yourself why it's important for you, and not why other people think it's better for you or not for you, because that could be their choice. I was really lucky. My parents did really push me to go to university. And then my mom was so like really open to the Up With People thing. My grandmother was not. She was like, what is this thing? You should just get a job now or go to law school.
Yeah.
But I followed what was true for me.
And that's what we have to do.
Yep. Yeah. And that's really, really what we all should do, is just listen to ourselves. But it's so hard because there's so many voices coming at us, and we have so many expectations, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Yeah.
So try to find out what your truth is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I have so enjoyed getting to know you over the years, and it was great to see you in Denver.
Me too.
Maybe next time I'm up there, if you're still there, we can
or maybe I dip down to Arizona.
Go down to Arizona. You're welcome anytime. Yeah.
Thank you, Donna.
I'm gonna turn off the recording now, Kerri.
Okay.
Thanks all.